Jean Dubuffet created hard hit as an expression of scarcity, strife, and confusion. In the mid-20th century France, there was much discourse in the realms of politics, labor, and art. Each area spurred each other, especially due to the onset of general movements which embraced absurdity. This was heavily tied to growing discontent with political change and the economic state, both heavily affected by World War II. People wished to distance themselves from distasteful banks, government, and the harsh realities of daily life. Hard hit and Dubuffet's brutal style directly reflect the artistic intentions of existentialism, a disconnect between the value of social institutions and predetermination against the purpose of life. This work invokes intense emotions expressed by the artist upon the viewer, through use of iconography, frenzied color, and line. There is a noticeable flatness to this painting. There is no coherent use of space and perspective. Instead, sprawled lines encompass hasty marks of colorful pigment. These colors are randomly applied, removing any sort of value. There are no shadows to distinguish between faces, figures, and buildings. The composition appears to melt together in a sickening display. Line is the only technique utilized to make out specific forms from the colors. A chaotic medley of color and line present confusing emotions for the viewer. What we are looking at is absurd. Lines swerve to form tall cellular buildings and small windows and doors. Words span across the center of the composition. This scene is filled with twisted figures and faces dotting windows, doors, and the street. The figures are painted in an especially crude manner, looking barely human at all. They are mixed together amongst the stomach-churning colors. This allows for no empty space. Fear of the unequal economy, the institution, and scarcity can be found in the words and imagery within this work. We must place its creation in the context of mid-20th century Paris, which had been freed from Nazi control around 20 years earlier in 1944. According to Lorwin, the lower class was subjected to terrible conditions, lack of drinking water, basic goods and hygiene, and extremely low wages. Lorwin explains that the definition of basic needs as a class distinction was up for debate in mid-century France. In 1950, a national minimum wage was established, but scarcity prevailed. There was much political discourse over the necessary amount of resources people must consume, so there was much difficulty in establishing a stable welfare state. In Hard Hit, Dubuffet painted an abstract yet recognizable view of a lower-class French neighborhood covered with purposeful graffiti. The sprawled French words are written in a colloquial style. They express phrases of anger towards the living conditions caused by stagnant provisions of needs. The only white words, le plomb dans l'aile, are an idiom directly meaning the lead in the wing, translating to hard hit. Ratner claims this implies the decline of business, especially for the central figure, a shopkeeper. An unintelligible creature looms above him. The muddled iconography within this painting demonstrates discontent with the terrible conditions, economic state, and institutions which caused them. In 1901, Dubuffet was born to wealthy parents who were part of a wine merchant family. By 1916, he was enrolled in the Art Academy Julienne. Dubuffet only attended for a short time. According to Ratner, he realized his ideas were incongruent with the idea of the evolution of art and the reigning classical style. He believed that the function of art was to evoke emotions in any viewer. He could be considered a formalist, wishing to reject cultural and societal conventions from his art. According to the Guggenheim catalog by Rowell, Dubuffet spent the 1920s immersed in travel, established esteemed relationships, and studied extensively. During this time, he grew especially interested in the artistic expression of the mentally ill and, quote, primitive peoples. They are people generally marginalized from Western society. He considered them free of the grip of forced culture and industrial society. He also rejected the notion of beauty in art, which these completely untrained individuals inherently reject. According to Rowell, Dubuffet in 1942. He was now fueled by intensive contact with artists and thinkers Ironically, he was extremely involved in cultural discourse. His works were influenced by philosophical and artistic change. The catalogue states that Dubuffet's Art Brut collection was established in 1948. Art brut was defined by Jean Dubuffet. It is the concept of the art created by those marginalized from society. He collected much art by those in mental institutions. This style can be described as primitive, though this is a weighted term. His collection grew into the collection of Art Brut Museum in Lausanne, Switzerland. Art Brut is also concerned with general self-taught artists, separate from any art movement. This includes graffiti and any other creative expression. According to the museum's history section, Dubuffet defined Art Brut as an artistic operation that is entirely pure, raw, reinvented in all its phases by its author, based solely on his own impulses. Dubuffet's style is highlighted by intentionally unstable lines, smeared marks of color, disorienting perspective, and brutish depictions of people. In both of these works, primitivism is on display through crude figures and scrawled lettering. This style involves taking motifs and ideas from non-Western art. The leftmost, View of Paris, the Life of Pleasure, is much flatter and more regularly geometric. This composition looks quite childlike. On the right, Spinning Round is part of the same series as Hard Hit, Paris Circus, according to Tate Modern, where Spinning Round is held. The perspective is quite disorienting, indicative of the confusion and turmoil of the time that Dubuffet wished to convey. The dates that these were made are quite important, 1944 and 1961. You can see an evolution of style between these works. Brutality is utilized across many of Dubuffet's works to invoke unsettling emotions within viewers. An example of this are his creations of assemblage, including butterfly wings. These were not received very well by the public. According to Rich, these were criticized for their cruelty, uselessly killing creatures for similar pictorial effects in other works. This brutality is more emotionally intense than a painting due to the inherent death necessary for creation. Utilizing the wings and imprints of butterfly to create a similar motif to other works established a deeper barbarity behind the assemblage. Let's compare one of these butterfly works to those with similar composition. The work on the left is called Paysage au Argus, a landscape named after the butterfly. According to Rich, there are vibrant blues, yellows, and oranges, which unfortunately cannot be seen in this image. The paintings on the right are called Paysage and Paysage au filigrance, from top to bottom. When in black and white, these works appear strikingly similar in composition. They appear like topographical maps. The butterfly work is contrastingly brutal due to the context behind the materials. Dubuffet's consistent use of intentionally bewildering colors, imagery, and materials is meant to present uncertain emotion to viewers. Dubuffet used brutal imagery, materials, and color to communicate an absurdly deadly appeal and underlying message throughout multiple works. According to Ames, existentialists consider that only those living an artist are truly living and displaying a rejection of convention and focusing on intuition, which is pivotal to creation. Existentialists live in constant questioning, doubt, and new choices because of the freedom. Dread and anxiety are expected alongside the realization of absolute freedom. The artist has the ability to express the complex emotions behind existence, communicate those emotions to viewers, and free themselves from institution. Hard Hit and Dubuffet's brutal style directly reflect the artistic intentions of existentialism, a disconnect between the value of social institutions and predetermination from the purpose of life. Jean-Paul Sartre provides an explanation for the philosophy in his lecture, Existentialism as a Humanism. Dubuffet's passion for art brut is reflective of the human desire to create for the purpose of expression, rather than following learned guidelines. Hard Hit specifically is reflective of the emotional turmoil felt by those who were hurt by institutional power. His rejection of traditional standards also display the same philosophy of rejecting institutional ideas. This work invokes intense emotions expressed by the artist upon the viewer through use of iconography, frenzied color, and line.